Hello, GNTC government class. Um, Rather than just do a bunch of assignments, I mean, you can do them, you can do the assignments, but I thought I'd try to get you some lectures and you can like turn in the notes to me. I got to figure out how to set up a online submission process. My thinking was that we would just turn it in when we all got back, but who knows when that's going to be. So that's going to be something I'm working on the end of the week. But one of the things you'll be able to do is turn in notes. Turn in notes that you've taken from things that I'm doing online, because I just feel like there's more learning that takes place that way than just defining vocabulary words. But it's your call. You can do the ones that are online, but I am sending this out kind of as a alternative, if that's okay. So when we were last together, we were talking about the president, and so I got two more topics I want to do with the president. I think or maybe 2 more days I'm going to do with the president. There's some neat little things to do with the president, and then next week I'll get going. So I'll go with either interest groups or Congress. I can't decide which, but I kind of like to. I'm sorry about that. I like to keep my decisions in front of me, so I'll figure it out. But at any rate, hey, you can turn in notes. Okay, so we were looking at like informal and formal powers of the president, and I believe we did the power to pardon. Maybe we did amnesty. I don't really think we did amnesty. So I mean, you can look at that. You can look at it if you want to. But here's the next topic that I've got. So president as commander in chief. All right, and so it's a pretty interesting little topic. Last time we went to war was World War II. So it turns out that the president has sent troops to some place without declaring wars 40 times as many as times Congress has declared war. So Vietnam, there was no declaration of war, and the situation was Johnson was the president, and the Tonkin Gulf Resolution, where we may or may not have been fired on by the North. But he used a kind of a shady situation to get this. He kind of baited the North Vietnamese into fire some torpedoes at some American ships, because we were floating around off the coast of North Vietnam, and he claimed it was just a routine patrol. So, the situation itself was kind of complicated. But at any rate, he goes to Congress and says, hey, we've been attacked. And so Congress passed this thing called the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. They gave him power to take all necessary measures to fight the communists in Southeast Asia. Well, in other words, that meant send as many troops as you want for as long as you want. Okay. So then what happens is it becomes pretty clear that Johnson knew from the beginning that this was not a winnable war. He kind of believed in the domino theory, and he was worried about his domestic legislation, the Great Society stuff, civil rights and voting rights. So he wasn't straight with the American people about our chances of being successful in the war. So in '73, when Nixon was president, Congress passes the War Powers Act. And it's designed to give Congress more power over war-making powers and weaken the president. All right, so it says a couple of things. So it's 2 and 2. The president, he doesn't have to tell Congress that he's sending troops somewhere beforehand, because if anybody finds out, that might put the troops in more danger than they're already in. But he's got to tell Congress within 2 days, 48 hours, 2 days, that he sent troops somewhere, and then he's got 2 months. 2 days, he tells them, 2 months to get their approval, or else he's got to get them out in a month. And so both Bush and Obama sent troops places when they were president. So I mean, people were saying, well, they violated this thing because they didn't get congressional approval. And nobody's quite sure. Congress has never tested this thing out and ordered the president to bring troops home. So there's lawyers not even sure it's constitutional, because it might violate the president's role as commander-in-chief if he's got to kind of ask permission from Congress to keep troops in a place. But we don't know because, Congress has never challenged the president on. So it's kind of interesting little story of the powers of the president making war. Okay, hey, I'm pausing, going to breathe for a second and answer those questions. We're going to do 4 of them. Okay, and I'm going to try to keep things to 30 minutes. I've made a few of these last couple of days, and if it gets any longer than 30 minutes, it gets awfully hard. It takes forever, hours and hours to process and upload. So if I can keep it at 30 minutes or lower, I think I can get it to you a lot quicker. So what time is it right now? It's 2:40. Nearly 3 o'clock. My hope is to get this thing out to you, sent to you by 5. Okay. All right. So impeachment. So impeachment was going on at the beginning of the semester. I have no slides on Trump. That's one thing I'm trying to decide if I should make some slides on the Trump impeachment, or if it's too fresh. We heard so much about it. I don't know. All right, but here's what the Constitution has said about impeachment. It's Article 2, Section 4. And so who can be impeached? All right, high up folks for the government. Not your mailman. He works for the federal government. He shows up, if he's doing a lousy job, he just gets fired. All right, but the president, vice president, all civil officers can be impeached. So folks high up for the government. All right, so here's the impeachable offenses: treason, bribery, high crimes, and misdemeanors. Okay, treason, you're selling nuclear secrets to Iran or North Korea. That's pretty clear. Bribery, you're giving somebody money to do some kind of favor for you. Okay, so bribery kind of came up with the Ukraine stuff. Was never officially a charge. High crimes and misdemeanors. All right, so then the question is, what does that mean? And I looked it up. And just like civil officers means generically folks high up, high crimes and misdemeanors means generically real bad stuff. So then the question is, hey, is cheating on your wife and lying about it, is putting up officials of another country to dig up dirt on your political rival, does that count as a high crime and misdemeanor? All right. And I don't know, think about the phrase rules or regulations. What's the difference between rules and regulations? There's not. It's just 2 different words for the same thing. So in this case, in 1787, the words high crimes and misdemeanors meant basically the same thing. It's like rules and regulations. All right. According to an article I read. Okay, so here's the procedure for impeachment. The House impeaches. In the case of Trump, the House impeached him with a majority vote right before Christmas, when we were out for Christmas. All right, so then when we got back, in January, the Senate had the trials presided over by the Chief Justice. John Roberts presided over it. You need a 2/3 vote to convict. In Trump's case, wasn't close to a conviction. All right, in our history, there's been 18 impeachments. 3 of them presidents now. 7 convictions. All the people convicted have been federal judges. Okay, so there's the second heading. All right, I'm going to breathe for a second. Okay, boom. All right, here we go. So now we're going to Andrew Johnson. So we're going to go through the impeachments prior to Trump today. It may be that next time I do the Trump impeachment in a heading. I don't think I have too much new to say about it. And then we'll look at, I believe we'll also look at what kind of makes a president successful on Friday. And then usually I do interest groups for it, do Congress. So even though I think I put Congress on the assignment first, I think there's some cute, fun little things to do with interest groups. All right. Johnson was the first president to be impeached. He was Lincoln's vice president. Became president when Lincoln got shot. Lincoln had made him vice president when he ran for re-election in 1864. He was a Southern Democrat. Added to the ticket to unite the country after the war. So he had this terrible temper. Wasn't an easy guy to get along with. It's hard to say if he had a drinking problem. He famously made his inaugural address while he was drunk. Maybe because he was a big drinker, maybe because he had a cold and didn't drink very much, and then when they gave him like whiskey to make his cold better, it made him drunk. I don't know. I've seen conflicting accounts, but at any rate, he was drunk and he like slobbered on the Bible when he took the oath of office and gave this awful speech. All right, but he wants to go easy on the South after Reconstruction. If you go right back up here, one thing that we didn't, there it is. So we talked about the pardon, but a mass pardon is called an amnesty, so that comes up with immigrants today. But Lincoln and Johnson gave a big amnesty to Southerners who seceded at the end of the war. Reagan gave a big amnesty to immigrants in the 80s. So that's Johnson. He wants to go easy on the South. All right. Okay, but Congress is just really, really partisan the way it is today. Congress controlled by radical Republicans like Thaddeus Stevens who wanted to punish the South. And so the question with the South was, do you hug them or slug them? Do you help them back up? Do you forgive them, or do you beat the crap out of them while they're still down? We kind of looked at that when we looked at Lincoln's speeches in class the day about half the folks that were out. But they passed this, but you got this big conflict between Johnson and the radicals, and they keep passing civil rights legislation. He keeps vetoing it. They keep overriding his veto. They set a record. He's got a record for the most times his veto got overridden. So then they just kind of hate him, so they set him up and they passed the Tenure of Office Act, which said he couldn't fire members of Lincoln's cabinet. He didn't really like Lincoln's cabinet. A lot of them were fairly radical. So they're setting him up. They're daring him to break the law. Is what they're doing. So he breaks it. He fires the Secretary of War, who was basically a pretty radical guy. He was in charge of Reconstruction, military Reconstruction. So by firing this guy, he broke the law. So the House impeached him. All right. So then you got the trials. Closest anybody's ever come to being convicted. 36-18 be a 2/3 vote. So this one guy, Edwin Ross, is a swing vote. The ticket to the trial was like a ticket to the Super Bowl. And nobody knows how this guy's going to vote. And some people look back at the vote. They say, well, he voted not to convict him. And that's just this really good thing. That means it's hard to kick the president out of office. And if he voted convict every time you got, divided government and Congress doesn't like the president, they're going to be kicking him out. There are other historians that say he did some kind of deal with Johnson and it was like a corruption kind of thing. And later on, he got appointed to a good committee in Congress, and later on he got made money off of it. So it's hard to say if he was being noble and patriotic or if he was just kind of being corrupt. But at any rate, that was a swing vote, so Johnson didn't get convicted. All right, so there's your Johnson. And hey, I think we're way under 30, don't you? I don't know what it is at this point. But I think we're in real good shape. Okay, so we got Clinton. All right, so there's 4 headings. I don't know. And a lot of times I underestimate it. But Clinton, this story, I think. He cheated on Hillary Clinton with this lady, Monica Lewinsky. All right, so then the Republicans found out about it. Kind of an interesting story. Hey, so that we chuckle for a second because we're all stressed out about coronavirus and so forth. We have the picture of a dress. There was evidence of the relationship on a dress, so we'll put it that way. All right, but that's not how people found out about it. They found out about it because he broke up with her. And then, so she's mad, and she's like talking to her buddy, her girlfriend, on the telephone, and, and doing what young ladies do when somebody's broken in, or anybody does when they've been dumped. And they're griping about the guy, so she keeps calling him the jerk. But it turns out the lady she's kind of bearing her soul to, Linda Tripp, is a big Clinton hater. So she records the conversations. And so then she turns it into like the Justice Department and the Republicans. And so the Republicans subpoena her. And so she's got to testify. And they say they're going to throw her in jail for a long time if she doesn't testify against him. So she finally testifies against him. So then they subpoena him. And he's a little cocky. He agreed to cooperate with the subpoena, and he had to testify for hours and hours and hours. Well, if you're testifying in front of good lawyers for hours, they're going to catch you in some sort of inconsistency. So he denied it under oath. We all know he was lying. We denied it under oath. And so something he said during the course of that was inconsistent. I think at one point they said, so you're saying there is no improper relationship, and his famous response was, well, that depends on what the definition of is, which, doesn't make any sense, and he was, like, famous for, like, Clintonisms like that, where he'd say things that were, like, technically true, but really misleading. All right, he also tried to get Monica Lewinsky to lie, also tried to get a secretary of the White House and the Oval Office to lie about it. So that's obstruction of justice. So those are the two charges. Perjury and obstruction of justice. We'll know, President Trump didn't agree to testify. If he agreed to testify, they would have got him on perjury one way or another. All right, the charge was obstruction of justice, or obstruction of Congress, I believe was the charge, something like that. All right, so I mean, representatives in Congress could vote for impeachment, which almost all Republicans did, or censure, which almost all Democrats did. And, hey, towards the end of the Trump thing, this may be the way I handle Trump, just kind of compare Trump to these processes here. So in one sense, Trump's his personality is kind of in your face, kind of confrontational like Johnson. He's got honesty problems, kind of like Clinton. And also in the Trump situation, you heard people talking about censure sometimes. It did not get as seriously considered as it did during the Clinton time. And, my AP government class kind of convinced me that maybe the way to have gone for the Democrats would have been censure rather than impeachment. I can't tell. But, that was a choice. And so most Republicans voted to impeach him. So then it goes to the Senate. The House impeaching, there was a small majority of Republicans in both houses under Clinton in 1998. And then in the Senate, there's only 45 votes to convict on perjury, 50 on obstruction of justice. It seemed political in the Johnson case, in the Clinton case, and absolutely, in the Trump case. And so one of the things the founders wrote, like in the Federalist Papers, for impeachment of work rights, it's got to be bipartisan. And in the actual cases of impeachment, it hadn't been. Okay, look at that. All right, so hey, we'll do Clinton and Trump next time, and also a couple of kind of ways of, Nixon, and maybe a little bit of Trump. It might be just that we just kind of compare Trump. Hey, answer these questions right quick. I think I'm way under 30 minutes, but, I'm bad at judging these things. I will try to send you another one on Friday. Hit this one. Once I hit this